Good morning.
Good morning.
And happy solstice. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Schenectady. I'm the Reverend Lynn Gardner. She and they pronouns for me. And along with Reverend Wendy Bartel, name not pronouns, please, we have the honor of serving as co-ministers here. As Unitarian Universalists, we value pluralism. That is, we don't expect everyone to think or be the same. And that becomes more visible in this season of Advent, Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Bodhi Day, Las Posadas, and today we honor in particular Winter Solstice.
And now let us receive the gift of our next breath, more fully arriving here in this moment, in this place. Come, let us worship together. This morning, Nancy and Courtney Addis will kindle our chalice as we share these opening words by Reverend Sharon Wiley, a pagan UU minister serving in California. This solstice day, in honor of ancient traditions that celebrate this time of longest night, we observe that the flaming chalice holds the elements of the four directions: earth, air, fire, and water. The lamp oil for earth, the air that feeds the flame, the fire we light, and the chalice itself, the cup, the symbol of water, the fuel. We light our chalice and reflect on the light we need to guide us through hard times. The light of our shared faith, the light of loving community, and the light of love, joy, and hope.
Today we celebrate the winter solstice. The word solstice comes from two words in Latin: sol, which means sun, and sistere, which means to stand still or stop. Over the past few days, the noon point of the sun has seemed to be in nearly the same place in the sky. It has risen a little bit later and set a little bit earlier, until about 10:03 a.m. here in the East. To put that in a bit of context, at the beginning of December, we lost 1 minute and 23 seconds of daylight, December 1st into December 2nd, with that time amount getting smaller as we made our way toward the solstice. On December 8th, we lost only 57 seconds of light. On Monday, December 15th, 28 seconds. On Friday, we lost 10 seconds. Yesterday, we lost just 6 seconds more. And today, the winter solstice, at least here in Schenectady, will be only 1 second less of daylight than yesterday, thus making it the shortest day of the year. And the cycle continues. Tomorrow we gain 3 seconds. And increases a little each day, so that on Christmas Day we'll have 37 seconds more of daylight than today. But to our senses, yesterday, today, and tomorrow will all be so similar. Today, the actual winter solstice, the sun rose here at 7:23 a.m. Sunset will be at 4:24 for 9 hours and 1 minute and 31 seconds of daylight. Many generations ago, before we understood the science of the Earth's journey, people were afraid that the sun was leaving or dying, and they created rituals and festivals and stories to invite the return of the sun. Today's service will include some of that earth-centered spirituality, practices, and some that are specifically Unitarian Universalist. Often at the beginning of earth-centered rituals, we call in directions, creating a circle for our shared time together. Because our kids will be leaving the circle today to go to a Faithful Fun Day, we instead reference to the directions in the chalice lighting words. For those who practice pagan, Wiccan, Druid, or indigenous earth-centered teachings, we know that the elements of air for the east, fire for the south, water for the west, earth for the north, along with guardians of above, below, and within, are with us always, whether we invoke them specifically or not. Perhaps you might notice the ways in which the energies of these directions are present with us in this service and throughout the coming days. Later in this service, we'll have some time for drumming.
This morning, our opening song is a chant, and it was written by Philip Palmer. The rhyme scheme that Mr. Palmer chose reinforces the gender binary, so if you do have a hymnal near you or you happen to have this song memorized, you might notice that the words on the screen are more inclusive. Let us rise in body and or in spirit to sing Children of the Earth.
Today I have a story to share with you that I first heard a version of 35 years ago at a storytelling workshop on the coast in California. Over those 35 years, I've gotten to hear a few different versions. And so this one is a little tiny bit different than one that I have shared here before. This is the story of how a hummingbird helped create the night. This story is originally from the Chumash people of coastal California, and it includes some animals that also happen to live in New York. So it's wonderful how stories can travel and be right at home in different places. Long, long ago, before there were people, the animals lived on the earth, and it never got dark. It was always daytime. And the animals all got along. The animals that swam, the animals that moved on the earth and in the earth, the animals of the air, all got along. But as happens with beings, the longer that they existed, the animals started to argue. They started to compete with one another. They started to talk about who was best and who was most important. That may be hard to imagine, but some beings do that. And one particular day, the animals were arguing, and the sound had gotten louder and louder and louder. And the Creator, the Spirit in the sky, was tired of the sound and took a giant blanket and whoosh, covered the earth, and it was dark. So dark. And the animals wandered around, bumping into one another, continuing to argue, blaming each other for the darkness. And they felt afraid. What would they do? What would they do if it never got light again? Well, finally, Black Bear, who was one of the biggest and strongest animals, said, I will take care of this. I will reach up, jump up with my claws and pull down the blanket. I will save us. And she jumped with her long pointed nose, jumping up, her big claws scraped the blanket, and she landed with a thud, smushing her face just a bit in. And you may notice that bears have a bit of a squished face. The blanket had a big scratch where Bear's long claws had raked it. But it stayed there, and it was still dark. And then Turkey Vulture who can fly so high and who is strong, began flying, flapping his wings, whoosh, whoosh, flying higher, circling higher and higher and higher until pop! Turkey Vulture's head popped through the top of the blanket, singeing off all of the black feathers that were on the top of his head as the sun burned through. Turkey Vulture flew back down, and the animals could see through the small hole up above that Turkey Vulture had no more feathers on his head. Rubbing his poor burned head, he said, I don't know that any of us can solve this. And the animals continued to argue about what they should do, about who to blame. Because sometimes when beings are afraid, they blame one another. This may also be hard to imagine, but it does happen. And the animals were arguing and blaming one another until little Hummingbird said, I know that I'm very small, but I have an idea. Let me see if this might help. And she flew up and up and up and pip, made a little tiny hole in the blanket, and then pip, another hole, and pop, and pip, and pop, all across the blanket. She made little holes, little pricks with her sharp bill, and the animals all became quiet as they looked at the beautiful designs and pictures that Hummingbird created. And in that moment, each of the animals began to feel a little bit blessed, a little bit grateful. And in that gratitude, they turned toward one another. And when they spoke again, they spoke kindly and carefully. And when the Spirit in the sky heard the quiet and the kindness and the gratitude. They pulled back the blanket, and it was light once again. But just in case the beings should become forgetful, the blanket is put back every night, with a space where Turkey Vulture popped his head through, with a slash of the Milky Way where Black Bear scraped the blanket, and the beautiful starlit sky with thanks to Hummingbird. And we are going to sing together Moonlight Whispers by W. Bartel.
As Lynn named earlier, darkness has been growing as we made our way to today, the winter solstice. As of 10:03 this morning, the astronomical winter began. With some help from the website of the National Centers for Environmental Information, or NCEI, which is connected with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, we can come to understand what the heck that means. They write, "People have used observable periodic natural phenomena to mark time for thousands of years. The natural rotation of Earth around the sun forms the basis for the astronomical calendar, in which we define seasons with 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes. Earth's tilt and the sun's alignment over the equator determine both the solstices and equinoxes. The equinoxes mark the times when the sun passes directly over the equator in the northern hemisphere, and the summer solstice falls on or around June 21st, the winter solstice on or around December 22nd, the vernal or spring equinox on or around March 21st, and the autumnal equinox on or around September 22nd. Now, most of us know that it takes approximately 365.24 days to make that trip around the sun. And so leap year was created to try to make up for that 0.24 for 4 years in a row. But that means that the solstices and the equinoxes vary not just a little bit each year that way, but also because of that leap year cycle. That, combined with the elliptical orbit, astronomical seasons can vary between 89 and 93 days. Trying to track climate statistics can be tricky with such variance in the Earth's journey around the sun. And because many of us still do actually value real science data and statistics, the National Organization does actually track, as do lots of other organizations. And so, and meteorological seasons were created because that variance was causing some havoc in into the statistics collections. So, astronomical seasons are based on the position of Earth in relation to the sun, whereas the meteorological seasons are based on the annual temperature cycle, based on data and statistics. Meteorologists and climatologists break the seasons down into groupings of 3 months based on annual temperature cycle, as well as our calendar. So the meteorological winter started back on December 1st. So December, January, and February, the meteorological winter. With all of that said, today, in the Northern Hemisphere, we mark the winter solstice, the beginning of astronomical winter. And there are many stories of rituals to mark this time, this winter season, this place on the path of the Earth as it circles around the sun. And the stories take on slightly different themes or practices based on their origin. Those near the equator are different from those nearer the poles, which may be different from indigenous peoples, which are likely different from those in Australia, which are different from those of the ancient Celts, and on and on and on around the world. Many of the stories of ancestors in Celtic and pagan traditions speak of these days with growing worry. The sun was rising less and less high in the sky, and it was getting colder. The people worried whether the sun would survive, wondered what they could do to coax the sun to stay in the sky longer. As a person who finds some sense and meaning, literal grounding in the cycles of the seasons and spiritual nourishment from the beauty of this earth, I long for a time to slow down, to rest, to be dormant like so many plants and trees preparing for a long winter's nap, if you will. Yet our culture does the opposite of that, doesn't it? We put up lights and light candles and have festive gatherings and shop and buy and gift and all the things. There are school plays, there are presents, and there are parties with friends, as we sang earlier. When I wrote that song for the children's choir in San Diego so very long ago now, I was watching families get busier. And I was also hearing wise words from young ones and their parents, and added the line that included the yearning many of us feel. There's church and time to ponder. We look deep within as a counterbalance to all that busyness. It doesn't always feel like there's time for those things. More often it feels like we're running out of time. But time is just time. It's happening, whatever we choose to do. So Lynn and I paused this morning to gaze at the pink clouds at 7:23 this morning, the sunrise on this blessed solstice morn. Imagine being one of those early humans. Or maybe you remember a past life. You rely on the sun for your very existence, and now it seems further away, rising lower on the horizon, setting sooner, and it's getting colder. Crops are not doing so great. You make offerings to the gods and goddesses and deities of your people, but still the sun seems to be leaving, or maybe even dying. Of course, at some point, humans could start to track the path of the sun, could see the pattern of receding and returning, They could be less afraid and instead make the necessary preparations to survive the winter, and together with community, determination, faith, and hope for the return of the sun, just as it has done for their ancestors, we too now celebrate winter solstice in remembrance of that. That Peter Mayer song that Reverend Joe sang reminds us that rather than fearing the dark, a night that might seem like a lifetime if you're waiting for the sun, why not sing to the nighttime and the burning stars up above? We need darkness and we need light to survive. They both have their gifts. Living with the cycles of light and darkness are challenging in a world that prioritizes capitalism more than the Earth's cycles. But deep in the stillness, deep in the cold, deep in the darkness, what might we find? What might be found there? I love the image of whole villages gathered around a fire, drumming, singing, eating, imploring the sun to return. Maybe some of our ancestors did this, and perhaps today we carry on in our own way. We sit around a chalice. We gather friends and cast our hopes into the fire as it snows. We wonder about God and not God, meaning-making and creating communities of care. From ancient days and ancestors' stories, we acknowledge, we celebrate, we mourn, we grow, we organize, we resist, we refuse to let hatred in, focusing on the sacred instead. With all the cruelty and disregard for our democracy, what might we, as Lynn said last week, what might we carve space for in this time of waiting or Advent, this time of wisdom or Bodhi Day, this time of miracles of Hanukkah, of journeys, Las Posadas, of the sacred darkness of solstice and the holy births foretold of Christmas? What do we need so that we remember still there is joy? I certainly know it can be hard to find time, carving it or otherwise, in this season to just pause and reflect, let alone to choose to engage in a spiritual practice or go for a walk or to work out or to eat well or all the things that we do to take care of ourselves. Bless you if those are sneezes. And our schedules are often so full, so it can be hard to find time to look for joy or to even realize it when it wells up unexpectedly. We may have to make some choices in order for that to happen, for us to tend to that yearning for quiet, for stillness, because maybe peace hides in a storm. Maybe winter's heart is warm, and maybe light itself is born in the longest night.
This reading is A Winter Blessing by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker. In the shadowed quiet of winter's light, earth speaks softly of her longing, because the wild places are in tears. Come, she cries to us, kneel down here on the frosty grass and feel the prayer buried in the ground. Bend your ear to my heart and listen hard. Love this world, she whispers. Distill peace from the snow and water the cities with mercy. Weave wonder from the forest and clothe grief with beauty. Rest in the rhythm of the turning year. Trace the bending arc rounding the curve toward justice. Vow again to do no harm. The winter trees stand watch, haloed in the last gleams of the slanting sun. Glory sings here. Heaven echoes the call. Repeat the sounding joy and make your life an answer. Bow. Praise. Rise.
Because lots of neo-pagan rituals and lots of UU gatherings involve food, and circles are another thing we have in common. In this season of gifts, both hoped for and unexpected, we offer a ritual, a blessing of nourishment. In a moment, the ushers and some worship folks will be handing out a plate to a row near you. Each of those plates has tangerine slices, some dark fair trade chocolate pieces, and there are also a few sugar-free chocolate bars that are pre-wrapped for those of you who need it. We ask that one person holds the plate and says, "May the darkness bring sweetness, may the light bring joy." The other person chooses a tangerine slice and/or a piece of chocolate, eats, receives the plate, turns to the next person and says, "May the darkness bring sweetness, may the light bring joy." There will be a slide there so you don't have to panic. And you'll just pass down the aisle as it goes. Watch for ushers at the end. They know what to do with the plates when it gets there. And those of you who are at home, you are welcome to join in this blessing with a sweetness of some sort in your own home. The words of blessing will be there. Let us sit together as these quiet blessings echo around the room, just as we repeat the sounding joy. So bear witness to one another as that happens. Pay attention as the plates are coming near you and turning. May the darkness bring sweetness. May the light bring joy. Let us share our affirmation together. May the darkness bring sweetness. May the light bring joy.
The circle is open but unbroken. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Happy solstice.